Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome some of our visitors tonight, our friends from the RTM, Paul Goldstein, Matt Seymour, April Carnes, and Mike Rochetti. As I indicated last meeting, public comment will be at the end of the meeting, where you will have an opportunity to ask questions about the budget or make comments about them. We've gone through the budget once, and we had a number of questions for the administration, and Tom's going to present on those questions that we had.
Sure.
And then I think what we'll try to do is just go through the various sections and see if the board wants to make any changes, either up or down. Go ahead, Tom.
Great. As everyone knows, I provided a comprehensive overview last week of the budget. This week is really just an executive recap, and then obviously follow up to your questions, both last week and in the interim between last week and this week. So last week I presented a recommended budget of 2.32. We have received some favorability this week in some insurance rates, specifically fire, property, general liability, and workers' comp rates. So the recommended budget is being adjusted down by $42,000, which totals a new budget request of 2.23. And what that looks like in terms of overall impact, as I shared similar data last week. When you look at the breakdown of our budget, special ed private tuition is 1.1% of our overall increase of 2.23. Contracted salaries is another 1.10. Those two areas in our budget alone account for 2.21% increase in our budget. Those two areas alone. Everything else in the entire budget, the other 440 lines of our budget, see an increase of a little under $9,000, which is how you get to 2.23. Again, a slide I shared last week. The big area you'll see the downward trend in is around employee benefits that represent those downward shifts in workers' comp and liability and things like that. Just another way of looking at that same budget. As I said last week, 51% of this budget is either reduced or flat from last year. It basically has to be when you have two areas such as tuition and salaries that are driving almost the entire increase. With that said, you had questions last week around specifically auditorium manager position. I provided you job description, salary breakdown, scheduling, things like that. You had questions around LTS coordinator last week. I provided you with job description, salary breakdown, and such. In addition, you'll see information on magnet busing, as well as a multitude of other questions. A couple of late questions that came in today, not late, but later questions, were around Perkins Grant and Drama Coach, and those are in hard copy at your places. I did want to follow up with one question. A couple people have inquired, we talked briefly last week about our textbook buying cycle, and I just wanted Craig to spend a minute or two just clarifying how we purchase textbooks. Years ago, you would see seesaw amounts. You would see $300,000 one year, $80,000 the next year, then it'd go back up to $250,000. What we've tried to do now is really normalize that in a flat amount, so you don't see those big swings. But Craig, if you want to spend a minute or two just talking about textbooks.
Yeah, and you really captured it well. Before the 2012-13 school year, we would predict how much we were going to spend, and if it was like a high content area like say science, that would be a very big purchase, and then we might do like the art where PE, art and music might not have a large account, and you would have these peaks and valleys in the budget, and of course when it swings more than 100,000, that really gets so the 12-13 school year, it was really decided and presented that time to the Board of Ed that we kind of looked at the curriculum cycle. We did some alignment of the curriculum. We brought it from a 7-year to 5-year, reclustered things, and we set, as Tom said, a fixed dollar amount. 125 is what we've been using the past many years to kind of have those purchases. So if we do a big textbook item and bring something to the board in the spring, then we would use the money out of this year, and if the money out of this year was depleted because it exceeded, say, that $125,000 allotment, then we would use next year's fiscal money to do the balance so that the teachers had those materials that were approved by the board in hand before the first day of school. And then henceforth we would have then a depleted supply that we would use for new materials, and then the fresh supply. So it's not a surplus per se, but it's a way to, as Tom said, normalize spending over 2 budget cycles to afford us to do what we need for kids and teachers.
So with that said, Mr. Chair, I don't want to spend time on things that may not have questions, so I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Board, do you have any further questions on Tom's presentation? We can do those now, or we can start going through, starting with the different series, the instructional series. And if you do that, those questions would naturally come to the floor. The board comfortable with the latter?
Yes.
Let's start with the instructional services. We'll be looking at pages 7 through 15. And remember, on tonight's agenda, it is possible to take action, and that action would be to add or subtract something from the budget. But keep in mind, that's kind of a tentative action, because we're not going to approve the bottom line tonight. That'll take place at our meeting on the 21st, when we approve the budget and the final bottom line. And there, obviously, there'll be further opportunities to change that. Pages 7 through 15. Remaining questions, comments, or possible action?
To the chair, this would be, since Tom gave us the info on the positions that we asked for, is this the time? Or no?
They're not in this section.
Okay.
This is instructional.
Okay.
The others are in support, the ones that we asked for. Is my understanding correct, Tom?
I believe so.
Yeah, the LTS.
Auditory manager is definitely in support,
So LTS.
and LTS is as well. Those are both in support.
To the busing and transportation.
Page 17. Here.
But during this time, under instructional, in your supplemental packet that you gave us what I asked for was the staff retention, which seems to me like it's all in line. It's all correct. It makes sense.
Yeah, we have a very high staff retention number across the district. I think generally people feel good about working here, and it's reflected in longevity.
I still had a hard time figuring out what line items went down with the new athletic director position.
Sure.
So I struggled figuring out what the actual savings incurred by making that position change.
So there was no savings in a sense from dollar to dollar. So we were paying about $112,000 under the last situation with an athletic director as a teacher, and we may be able to find a slide from last year on that to bring up. What we did, it was about a $33,000 increase from the old AD model to the new AD model. But what we did is we expanded the responsibilities of the position to be a district athletic director, and we also added 11 days of work. So the per diem went down substantially. but the overall dollar amount was up by $3,000. The line items affected by that would have been supplemental pay at CLMS and supplemental pay at the high school in the areas of athletics. And perhaps, Joe, I don't know if you can call up where those would be specifically.
Ed is Clark Wright. Yeah, but he did a slide on it last year.
There it is. It's on page 10, about 10 lines down, supplemental pay, athletic WHS. So what came out of that line was a number of stipends that the teacher athletic director received under the old format. The athletic director, as a teacher, would receive a fall athletic director stipend and a winter athletic, a spring athletic director stipend. And then at CLMS, there was also a position of athletic coordinator, I believe it was called. Both of those have pulled out. You'll see those lines haven't decreased year over year because there are contractual increases on the remaining supplementals in those lines.
Thank you.
So you did drop in supplemental pay athletic CLMS by 21%.
A little late to the game, but Tom, I believe this is last year's budget slide.
There you go. No, that's exactly the slide I was thinking of. So thanks for bringing that up. So you can kind of see the breakdown of the old versus the new. On the left was the old model of a teacher salary plus the athletic director stipend plus middle school stipend, and then the new situation of an athletic director. You can see the days went from 198 to 209. So while the dollar amount went up by about $3,400, the per diem went down.
Right, and Joe, I remember when we talked about this, we said this position wouldn't cap out in steps, making it a savings. Isn't that something that we said last year?
The bargaining we did with the administrators union is this is a non-step position. There are no steps associated with this. Certainly there's a GWI that applies.
Right, but
there are no steps associated with this.
You wouldn't see the savings this year, but over the course of time, over 5 years or 7 years, this person, the 97 can go higher, but here, the 116 stays. That's what I remember. Correct?
Correct. The 116 stays in a sentence that there's no steps, but there would be a GWI.
Besides the GWI, right. Correct. I didn't say that, but I meant that. I knew no steps.
So those stipends on the left, the middle school AD, the AD stipend, and the middle school intramurals have been collapsed into the responsibilities of the athletic director.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, do you want a motion on?
No. Only if you wanted to change something.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, support services, pages 16 through 26. Questions, comments, actions?
I have a question about, so are there paras in every single classroom elementary, or is it mainly just pre-K, K1?
There are no regular ed paras other than 3 computer lab paras. There are 3 reading paras at the elementaries, 1 at each school, 3 math paras. The rest are all special ed. There are ones in the pre-K rooms because of the special ed population in those rooms.
Sure. And then also library that you consider.
Those are in the secretarial.
Got it. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcia.
On page 18, I'd like to go over some of the information we got recently about learning through service and then the auditorium manager. Actually, I'll start with the auditorium manager because that comes in our packet first. What I noticed, and I understand from the description and everything of all the hours and everything, that this person certainly does a lot of work. However, the fact that this person is not certified, and the fact that when I went through the hours, if we were to replace them, 418 hours of that were drama related. This person is also getting a stipend of $4,000 for the drama coach and to produce 4 plays during the year. I would love to see, so to me, the first page it says it would cost us $31,871, and we'd only see a savings of $13,445. Isn't really accurate, because if you take those 418 hours and multiply them by the amount of the overtime, you end up with almost $20,000, an additional $20,000. So 2/3 of those hours are spent with drama.
But I will clarify that that is not a requirement of the drama coach position.
Right.
So the drama coach position is technically in the teachers union, and teachers have rights to that position. Nobody has claimed that, which is how it's ended up with somebody outside WSCT. But for hypothetical reasons, let's say an English teacher at the high school wanted to be the drama coach.
Yeah.
There is no obligation for them to run the auditorium as the drama coach for those rehearsals and productions.
Right. But when I added up all those hours, it seemed to me, and it just seemed to me that there were 418 hours devoted to drama. That I think is probably what the entire drama coach spends, rather than just the amount of time needed for lighting and that sort of stuff. Because that's basically the only service that is needed, correct?
Lighting and sound.
Lighting and sound.
Yep.
Yeah, so some of the rehearsals and some of the practices don't require that kind of expertise. It's not definitely over, I think some of them were 37 hours, 40 hours at a time, and for the drama rehearsals and then the drama set building. I don't understand why, maybe you're going to need the lighting person there eventually, but not for the entire set building situation and not for all the rehearsals.
All I can say is that Mr. Hauser designated, when he did the research on this, these are times where an auditorium manager would need to be present. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Just for clarification, if this were an English teacher doing the drama production, how many drama productions would be done? I know at most high school there's 2.
Yeah, I think the way the job description, I don't know.
It doesn't say a number.
It doesn't say a number.
That's usually 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think the typical expectation is 2. We certainly exceed that. Typically it's 4 or more. I think the basic expectation would be 2.
Okay.
But again, I want to make sure that people understand drama coach and auditorium manager are 2 distinct.
You could hire someone totally different.
Except that on number 5 of the job description, it does say acts as a theatrical advisor to the school district staff who use the auditorium. So that does draw them into that part of it also. I would just like to see, I don't want to, I know I've been harping on this, but I would like to see us, just like we looked at the AD positions, I'd like to see us look at this position and the learning through service position and come up with in my opinion, a better system. Because to me, there's an awful lot of overlap, and we're paying an awful lot of money that we could use in the elementary school for another elementary teacher. I'm afraid we always cut the elementary schools. We never touch we never look at any of the other stuff that could be cut as well. I think it would be wonderful if we didn't have to cut anything. We could have the most luxurious district in the state. However, I don't think that's reality. If we're cutting teachers in the elementary school, we ought to do something about this as well. You want to continue with the,
I can, yeah, let me just,
before I go to the...
I actually see the need for an auditorium coordinator. But I do have concerns that if we do keep them separate, having been very active in theater in other districts, I have concerns that the hours, I agree with Marcia, drama set strike and building sets do not require sound and lighting boards. So if we are going to keep the description specific one versus the other, we shouldn't be melding the hours. So what are the hours that the drama coach advisor needed, and what are the hours that somebody really needs to be there to run the lighting board and the sound board? I think that this list mixes them up.
Okay. You want something separate.
I just think
it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, how many
Break it
times is
down.
the lighting board and the sound, which is the reason we have that.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, the advisor has the key to an auditorium in many school districts, and they only call in the lighting and the sound folks the last week for rehearsals. So, and I think that this auditorium is used more than most auditoriums in most districts. And I would actually argue for the position, but if we are going to argue for the position, I think we have to really separate the drama function from maintaining the auditorium. And I think we need to start capping some of these positions because they're getting, I agree with Marcia, they're getting very, very high pay because over time, with cost of living and stuff, and it's the same person's in the job for a long time, these positions are creeping up to more than and some of our certified teachers are. Not that that's, but I have concerns about how these prices keep creeping up from year to year.
John, go ahead.
I was just going to indicate that in comparison, just doing a little research myself, for one show at my particular school, the drama, and he's only doing drama, he's not doing light board, any of it, nothing. He's just literally doing the acting coach part of it. He gets $2,900 per show.
Right.
So
that's not unusual. That's probably
more
between
typical.
$3,000 and $4,000 per show is the going rate. But even if you did that, you're ending up with, those are drama stipends, which we have.
Right.
That's separate from, 50-something thousand for an auditorium manager, 60 for an auditorium manager.
Does the stipend for this person that has it, who is the auditorium manager, every year is it reposted so a member of the teachers union can apply for that position or no?
We're posted in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement.
So every year it's posted that someone from the teachers union can apply for that particular position.
Are you looking at me?
You're the union guy, right?
I'm here as a courtesy.
So Chris, if it's a current, if it's a filled position in the supplemental contract, they'll do are you still continuing, but if we don't necessarily auto-post everything.
Okay.
If there's a vacancy, we would do a posting. As Tom said, we do an annual check for notification.
So this person's been in that position as the drama stipend, taking the drama stipend for a while. Okay.
For a good number of years.
Since Mr. Stitzel left, I believe.
Over 15 years, 20 years.
Go ahead, Julie.
I agree with Linda. I think this is a really worthwhile position, though. I don't want to see it cut. Because I was on the school building committee, and we have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment there. And I just want to make sure that whoever is there, granted, he does train some of the students to run, the lighting and things like that. But I would want a professional in there. He may not have a degree as far as education goes, but I consider him a professional as far as, drama goes. And he does a lot. He works 12 months a year, though.
he doesn't work only
Right.
during the school year, he also does things during the summer, when anything's going on in the auditorium. The auditorium is used a lot. And, maybe we should ask Rec and Parks too, if they have another list of the times that, they've had programs in there too. Because
lot of those
they're
are on
on
there.
there. But I think
Rec and
it's
Park
more-
hours are not reflected
No.
in, so the community's use of the auditorium, there's a ballet group that comes in.
There's ballet on here, some.
Yeah, well,
There's some other things that he does that aren't on.
in June, you got Rec and Parks, dance
I
shows,
think Andre
Broadway
wrote
kids.
something in the description that,
Wrecking Park, dance show, Wrecking Park, Broadway kids.
maybe, it could be, well, it looks like,
Dancing with
looks
the
like,
Stars, which is youth
That's
it
theater.
looks like there
Yeah.
is some outside group stuff in here, yes, I stand corrected on that.
I don't want to necessarily eliminate this position. I'm not looking at that. I think from all the description that's here, this person obviously does a lot. I'm just afraid that it's getting away from us and that there's a lot of overlap. And that we need to look at this and look at the job descriptions, maybe clarify both job descriptions, maybe set it all apart again and throw both job descriptions out and start anew. That's all I'm saying.
One of my concerns with that would be if we are separating them out, we're gonna go down to 2 shows a year instead of the kids having 4 shows or 5 shows a year. So the kids could pay in that. And, my kids are both graduates of this program and it was huge for them.
Not if the same person takes the position.
Well, but then the auditorium manager is gonna be doing a couple of shows. And the drama group is doing, so it's gonna be blended if we're expecting, them to do 4 shows. Because the drama director for $4,000 isn't gonna do 4 shows.
Right.
So that then becomes part of his other job or the other time that he's there. So I think,
Well, I would just like to see some investigation and some creative thinking on it.
Or I'd like some clarity. I don't know, I just would like some clear roles and, I would think a calendar should be kept, but I'd like next year to see a calendar on, school district, drama versus town. I'd like to see it broken out that way so that we can actually make a decision about what's going on.
Perhaps that could be addressed in a future superintendent's report, keeping in mind that we have a collective bargaining agreement. So
Yeah,
in terms of the drama coach, we're not going to be able to do much
Good point.
without cooperation. Changing
Or just hours on the calendar here, to break it out into three columns.
And one of the things that hit me right away on the very first page, where you got auditorium manager and you got your weekly, yearly schedule, it says typically from 7:30 to 3:30, which is understandable because if they're spending a lot of time in the evenings or something. But don't say that, every morning when you go into Waterford High School, you're going to meet this person because they may not be there if they're going to be there in the afternoon. And so he's got a lot of flex time, or he or she has a lot of flex time built into this. And I just like to see it more standardized, like the learning of service person, which we could go into.
I was just going to say, moving forward on support services, Marcia, I think you had another
Yes.
topic you wanted to
Learning services coordinator, for instance, has 190 days at 8 hours a day, 8 to 4, with an actual, that's when they're expected to be there. This person is getting another 60,000. It says, as a breakout, we can save about $46,000 if we eliminate this position and reassign some of these things to either a computer to keep track of the hours, or maybe another position with a lower salary. I think the 2 important parts of the job description are number 11 and 12, which are to ensure the process regarding service learning on page 1 of the job description are current and that the student folders and databases are accurately maintained. And then informs guidance counselors regarding the student progress. I think those two things are paramount for this job. Whether it requires a $60,000 salary is, I'm not sure. As far as the Perkins grant goes, I was under the wrong idea. I thought it was more of a scholarship. It isn't. It is more of a grant of $25,000, which we got the information about tonight. And I would think, it said that in 2011, that went to the learning services person. I would like to see that grant oversight go back to the UA people, because most of it is UA equipment. That's just my opinion.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I would move, can I move something now? I would move to eliminate this position and request that the superintendent of schools come back with a proposal on how to meet these necessary, which I think is pivotal, responsibilities in a different way.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
The motion is to eliminate the learning through service coordinator position and to direct the superintendent to come back with a plan as to how to meet the job functions that coordinator was performing. Have I
Correct, very well. It's better stated than I.
Discussion. Chris.
What's the impact if the motion carries? What's the impact to the bottom line? Like, it's now, based on what you said from insurance, we went from 2.32 to 2.23. What's the impact now by reducing this by this 66, not counting the French?
Sure, I can speak generally while Joe's going to type some stuff into Excel and get that to us in a moment. But basically, the exposure to the board would be the proposed salary for next year of $56,723. We would cut Social Security and Medicare in the budget by $43.39. That's not money that goes to the employee. That's money that goes to the government for this person. With that said, we'd have to add in $14,181 of unemployment exposure, and then potentially there would be some. I wouldn't necessarily build it into the budget in any fashion, but I would certainly want the board to know that I'd be coming back with a plan that likely would include probably working with the teachers union on some supplemental positions to fulfill these obligations. So there would be next year the savings I don't know what the exact amount would be because you'd have to negotiate some of the offsets, but Joe can give you...
The reductions in pluses and minuses we talked about were $46,431. You need to be cautious though, because you're asking me for a number without saying who's going to do the statement of work and how much that statement of work is going to cost.
Right.
So, I'm hoping that what you're looking at is just to try and incrementalize the difference. So
yes.
From 2.23 to 2.13.
Again,
that doesn't include who's doing the statement of work.
Right.
So,
and what's the new number? Before it was $1,077,286. What's the new number?
1030854.
Okay. Thank you.
Other discussion. Great.
I think there's probably a better way to go about that, doing it instead of eliminating the position entirely, and then we can do our research in a different way.
And I don't think, because we're under the discussion, I know that you gave us the job description, and I know that you gave us the numbers, and I listen and I understand, and I get it, but for me, I just need a deeper dive into this before I'm going to say yes, because the impact and the percentage is just so minuscule to me. And is this person, and I asked this last week, are they verifying the hours? Like, what are they doing? Like, I have to hear a little more.
Yeah, I can give some description. We certainly have high school administration here, so this position generally is responsible for finding learning through service opportunities for kids. Many kids find some of their own, but there are other, so there's that outreach to community service partners, there's outreach to town agencies, outreach to other folks in the community to set up those opportunities for kids. So that's one statement of work. The other statement of work is getting the hours that are submitted back from the students and making sure those are tracked and logged, because it is a graduation requirement in our board policy. And then the other statement of work of this position is the Perkins grant management and the compliance with that. High school administration is here. If there's further detail you want to add to the brief description I gave.
I think you covered it well. 840 students are required to do 80 hours of learning through service, and that has to be monitored and accounted for and verified.
Sure.
I don't want to see this position cut at all, because I work in the concession stand. The learning through service coordinator, I mean, she's on top of some of these seniors that still need 40 or 50 hours. And this one young man that's helping me, I mean, he keeps in touch with the coordinator pretty much daily. And I know that they have to check the places where the students are writing down where they volunteered. Also, this person also organizes other things. She organized the honor flight program that took place on voting day. We had to make sure that there were students there to cover that, and a grown-up with each student during the whole day, and we were able to send 7 World War II veterans to Washington. I mean, it's not just the hours. This person is also looking for other opportunities for not only individual students, but groups of students to do. And granted, I mean, it's a job description, but I personally feel, because I've worked with a lot of the students over the years, there's much more to it than just these points.
Any other comments?
I kind of agree with Chris that if we really want to dissect it, that it's not as broken down as it could be. Like what Jody said, there's more components to it that keep coming to light. So rather than just go by this, I mean,
Jody,
one more thing I forgot too. Delta tries to line up students for jobs or careers that they might be interested in, so it's truly learning through service. I mean, they're not interning, but they're going to different places with facilities where they might be interested in, that career when they graduate.
And it is a graduation requirement, so the work has to be done somewhere.
So, I mean, if you're going to say you're going to want to split that position out amongst a bunch of people, I don't know that works so well, that it functions as smoothly as it could with one person as a central point of contact.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise theirs. Motion fails 7-2. Any other action on support services?
Well, can we clarify this? I know we don't have a motion, but Tom, can you get us information more about the process of how this person works? Because I would like to leverage technology as much as we can. I think the kids are still filling out papers and they're getting them signed, and that takes a lot of time. If we can leverage technology, we might be able to, save on the hours and
those hours still need to be verified, whether it's by paper or electronically. Someone still has to look at them and say, these qualify under, program.
They can sign on paper too.
Right,
They're going to cheat.
Right, but I think that goes to the deeper dive, but correct me if I'm wrong. It was said last month, and I used the DFW, not all the hours are verified. That the student could just be taking the paper and saying that they're at the DFW, and it's not necessarily verified.
Well, it does ask for an adult signature from the site. But I can't say that we're calling the VFW and saying, I'd like to speak with Joe Smith. Can
Okay.
you verify Chris Jones' hours? But there's a signature from Joe Smith, an adult at the VFW, verifying Chris Jones did these hours. It's not just on student
Understood.
work. But we are not calling every placement verifying.
I just wanted, I filled out a lot, and there's a place also for a comment from the supervisor that was in charge of the student, which I think is good to have that on there. And I've gotten phone calls to make sure that certain students have done what they said they're gonna do. And I realize you can't call every single one. It's a lot of work.
Can I just ask for a little, if I could get just a touch more direction from the board, exactly what the more detail is that you want, that would help me get you what you're looking for.
I would like to see how other communities do it. Obviously, there are a lot of communities that have learning and service as part of their requirement. It's even part of the state now. And I don't think everybody else is spending $60,000 on it. That's what bothers me, that we're spending $60,000 on it. And we don't have another teacher, another kindergarten teacher, another first grade teacher.
And
That I can do. That will take some time.
Yeah.
That will not be something I could necessarily have for you by next Thursday.
right, I get that.
Go
And
ahead.
have conversations with the teachers union. Could it be a stipend position? Could you take this position? Can it be absorbed via a secretary? Can it be a stipend position? Can it be done through someone in guidance? Can these forms be done like what Joy's saying through Google Forms? Is the person sending an email to do it? Like, let's look at it more. I'm not saying I want to keep it, but I don't want to say, hey, in my mind, we're going to get rid of it without knowing what all of the extras are. And I think there's ways, like everyone's saying, it could be trimmed down, or there's ways to look at it. When's the person's contract up? Talk to the teacher. So that's my answer to you on how to look deeper.
What I would suggest is that we put this topic on the agenda for a subsequent meeting to give Tom better direction, rather than trying to do it out of budget.
Well, I'd like to see something like what the auditorium manager did. Hours, days, how many hours a week are they pushing paper and filing paper? How many hours are they on the phone coordinating?
It's year-round and nights and weekends at times. I don't see that for this position, just,
Right.
it's a school year, it's a lot of money for a 10-month position.
Unrelated, are the and forgive me if they're not, coaches stipends also under this particular section that we're in right now?
Athletic
Athletic
coaches,
stipends and whatnot.
those would be under the previous section.
Okay.
I'll defer to the chair, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you want to go back.
I don't, I just wondered how the stipends are determined, and I'm throwing these out there just as an example, just asking. So fencing gets $5,402, and they have maybe 20 kids to sort of supervise and whatever. And I know the track coach has over 40 kids or more that he's responsible for or she's responsible for. So I just wondered why they vary so greatly.
So those are collectively bargained between the board administration and the teachers union, and I know the next round of negotiations is a year or two away. I'll defer to the chair.
No.
Are we ready to move to employee benefits? Any questions? Actions? Pages 23 to 26.
I have
purely based on the number of retirees. Number and many of these clauses have been grandfathered out.
So it's payout?
It's payout,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Contracted services, pages 27 through 29. Transportation, pages 30 to 39.
Well, at the point of sounding like the grim cutter tonight, I would like to have some discussion and possibly move that we reduce the transportation for the magnet schools. I don't know if eliminated is the right step right now. Let's come up with something with the superintendent, or to maybe come up with a step process to reduce door-to-door pickup, and maybe local school pickup, maybe.
More hubs.
Yeah, hubs.
My reaction is that we're spending $83,000 that we don't have to spend.
Right.
And we have obligations, statutory obligations to our students and to the district. And we find ourselves struggling at times to meet them. We worry about situations, for example, in Quaker Hill with the lower grade levels, particularly kindergarten. And here's $83,000 that we don't have to spend. We're paying additional money, and we have to, so that these students can attend the schools that they have chosen to. So that hurts the district and our ability to carry out our program, but we can't complain about that. That's an obligation. But here's something we don't have to do. How do we say no to not eliminating this expenditure of $83,000? I don't have an answer for that. Tom?
Just remind the board, this is really the first year where we're seeing a substantial board subsidy of this service. Traditionally, we've had enough magnet students going to magnets that whereas the state reimbursement at $1,300 a head was enough to cover the cost of this. Kind of a bittersweet thing in the sense that we've done an excellent job as a district drawing and reducing our magnet population, so much so that the cost to run the service would now have to be subsidized by the board. So we've been able to recover tuition dollars by keeping kids in district. But as the chair pointed out,
but to that end, if this would be considered an off year or a skewed year, if next year that number increases, then does it put us in that same situation?
I asked Joe to comment on kind of the trend over the last couple of years in relation to the magnet transportation grant.
So, like, pick 2018, for example, you transported those 4 schools you had before you, 90 kids. And we're forecasting next year to be down to 45 that are actually taking transportation, down from this year, which is 56. And to correct Tom, well, not correct Tom, but update in fiscal 19, I am being hit with about $50,000 negative on specific to this grant because ridership was down much more than we anticipated last year. But unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball, and most of our impact that we're seeing is from the high school level. Right, kids get the license, they start traveling together.
But if the car breaks down and there's no transportation, then they're going on the bus. Are you counting those kids that are on the bus, or are you just counting the kids from the town? How are you counting the kids?
Kids that I'm counting are only ones that ride on the bus. They're the daily ridership. One-offs don't matter. Right? One-offs I can't put in for reimbursement for them.
So you cannot put in for reimbursement based on the students that are coming from the town going to those schools?
Only if they're actually on the bus.
Okay?
Oh, that's interesting.
I know this would be great if it covered everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other comments?
The cautionary tale is that Ledger they cut all funding a couple of years ago to magnets, and the Ledger people kind of rebelled. So, and they ended up actually leaving and getting more people to leave and say, oh, I can't believe you won't work with us or clean ice or whatever, so.
I think if we explain it, to the parents, it makes sense to me.
But certainly ample time to get the message out.
I mean, I hate to do it, but...
This year, we're talking about next year.
Yeah. I hate to do it, and, they did choose to go to those magnet schools, but I think our schools are better, to be honest with you.
But
Come back.
aren't some of these kids, when you say it's on the high school level, the kids that are going, again, if I look at some of your stuff and talking about these schools, some of these schools are actually doubled into the tech schools that you have to do it for, correct? So like, as an example, those kids that I see for Marine Science Magnet, aren't those kids on a tech school bus and you have to do it for the tech schools?
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, for VOAG, correct.
Right.
But you would see a decrease in the hours, right? So incrementally, the cost number would be different if we were just strictly doing the VOAG. And I might actually be able to fit them on one of our vans, which to run those is $15 an hour, or $19 we've got.
Or the ones going to the VOAG and the tech school, you could fit onto a van if you didn't have the marine science school. Gotcha.
Right, but those kids, again, if I'm not mistaken, and I remember I wasn't on the board, the Marine Science School adjusted their times, not under your regime, Tom, but under the last superintendent's regime, and made the time so they could be on that same bus. Am I not correct in that?
I know Marine Sciences School start at 7:30 and their end time is 1:45 p.m. So I believe that it looks like they're dismissed early.
Well, what amount is it that we need to meet our obligations as far as statutorily?
We are not obligated to provide any transportation to magnet or charter outside of Waterford. We obviously have 2 magnets in district.
But this amount doesn't include the tech schools.
It doesn't. We are statutorily responsible for transporting to tech and VOAG. This is only magnet charter.
Did you have a motion now?
It was sort of a vague thing.
There's no motion on the floor yet.
There you go.
We're still discussing this section of the budget.
It kind of looks from your description that you already have hubs sort of set up. Even
Yeah,
with these costs.
would it help to kind of explain how each one of these schools is transported?
So RMMS, which is elementary, you
Right.
have 3 elementaries in the district. Obviously, the kids are picked up with the regular kids or on the regular bus that brought to the respective elementary schools, and then there's an individual vehicle that transports them from each of the 3 elementaries to RMMS.
So they take our regular Waterford bus to their local elementary, Great Neck, Oswegatchie, or Quaker Hill, and then we're providing a shuttle, essentially, from each of the 3 elementaries to RMMS. That's how RMMS works. You want to talk about the return trip home?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the way home, they actually grab the Isaac kids as well. Sorry, Chris, I just got reminded of something. Marine Science Magnet School, they're picked up with VOAGs, and Science and Tech, that's the big cost one. So just to give you an idea of this one, in 2018, you had 26 students that were taking the bus that were reimbursed for. Now you have 6. 2 dedicated vans that are traveling around the whole town. It's a lot of hours. That's a difficult one.
Why can't they get on the high school bus and go to our high school?
Because of the time. Science and Tech Magnet School starts at 7:30 and dismisses at 2:15. There hasn't been a willingness to accommodate any alteration. Is what I've received back this week.
Can you...
I'm wondering if The first step is to eliminate high school runs, and then the next year consider the elementary. Because right now, that's 41,000, that's the science tech school. And 5,400, for 6 kids. And then the marine science is another, so that would save us 45,000, almost 46.
That sounds like a good motion, huh?
Other comments?
I was going to say, can you reach out, and I know that you're constrained by time, but can you reach out to these other superintendents and say, can they adjust their times like was done in the past, and maybe they can adjust their start times or their end times and do something to bridge the gap?
Can. I would want some direction.
I wouldn't be surprised that if we eliminated this, that these schools found a way to provide transportation. They don't want to lose these students. They're making money with these students. They will save money by paying for the transportation as opposed to losing the tuition.
Are the six
Simple question is, do
freshmen?
we want to have our town and our taxpayers pay for this?
Are we ready for a motion? I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate the science and technology magnet school bus run for $41,128.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? on
Yeah,
this?
I'd like to actually make a motion to eliminate transportation for any high school magnet.
Oh, is there another high school?
Yeah, the marine science.
Sorry, I missed
That's
it.
okay.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, so,
I'll rescind that motion.
It's the body.
Can you amend it?
Motion is made to amend it, yeah.
Amend it.
so do I amend or does she? Okay, I'd like to amend the previous motion on the floor to include the marine science magnet school so that Waterford is not providing transportation to any high school magnet school programs.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Carolyn, do you have the amended, the full motion then? You can read it first.
I think so.
I have it down as the original motion to eliminate science and tech magnet busing, and an amendment to include the marine science magnet high school, and then obviously the dollar amount.
Discussion.
If we're running the numbers again, just like the last position, really kind of dollar for dollar is 45. So, Jay, it's still around the same thing, from 2.23 to 2.13, it's kind of the same number, right?
Not responding until you tell me, Joe.
Joe. I was more focused on the numbers than the names, I'm not going to kid you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's almost identical.
Right, okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise their hands. Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
The vote is 7-1.
There were two abstentions.
So there were 2 abstentions and 6-1. Abstentions are not votes. Any further discussion on transportation? We're moving over to insurance.
And I indicated these have adjusted down favorably.
Communications. Okay, we're into tuition. We have 36. Good. 45 underneath. Or 46, excuse me. Questions?
I know, Tom, you had mentioned about trying to, I'll just speak of Waterford Country School specifically. So when I worked there, I had students from Bridgeport, students from Danbury, students from wherever, and then even if they wound up in the shelter, they were obviously our responsibility. How realistic is it that we would be able to push that emphasis back on the LEA and just...
It appears from talking with our local state delegation, it would require legislation, obviously up at the Capitol. We are working on that, whether it gets proposed and whether it gets out of committee. This is not the first time it's been tried by either myself or a previous superintendent or a previous board. The Capitol works in interesting ways about who gets their stuff forwarded for consideration. The tough part is, and Kathy can chime in if I'm wrong, there's basically two shelters in the state, we believe, Waterford and Bloomfield. There may be one in Western Connecticut, but it affects so few towns that what's really the will of the other 100 legislators to really do something for 3 towns. So it is a long shot, but it's not. I remain committed to fighting the good fight on this.
Other comments on tuition? Other purchase service?
No, I just want to, I want Tom to keep fighting it, because I really don't think this is fair at all. We've been trying for years, like you said, but I really think something needs to be done.
Other purchase services, 47 through 49. Instructional supplies. We had a robust discussion last time. Operation and maintenance of buildings. If I move too quickly, bring me back. Let's go to water use. Martha.
Oh, good.
Sewer use. Electricity. Fuel. Textbooks, library books, other supplies.
I have a question about library books. Page 65, where you just have the summary. Craig, are library books down a little bit because we're building up classroom libraries and those come under instructional supplies?
Yes, so in the past we have built up classroom libraries, really K through 12, and high school a lot in the English. You'll probably see some requests with the new English curriculum. We did a reset about a half dozen years ago with our libraries to bring parity across them and to make them recalibrated. So right now, the library itself is just really normal new, but we don't have to do this Herculean lift anymore.
Okay. Can you define for me the other supplies and materials? What would fall into that category? No, it says that's a student account, Quaker Hill student, so I don't know what supplemental supplies are.
So that's 690.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a page in the budget book, where it's broken apart by the athletic director. It's all, it's the,
What page?
The bulk of this, so if you look on 66, 690 is broken down into a number of accounts. The bulk of this, 110,000 of the 173, is for athletics at the high school. And then, the remainder, you see 17,000 supplemental student activity at the high school, supplemental student activity athletics at COMS, so that's 121 of the 173.
Right, well, what does that mean? What is a student activity that we would be paying for supplies on?
which line specifically are you looking at?
I guess any of them, Joe. So I guess I would even ask some of the
Student
principals.
account high school, let's say. What does that mean? What are they spending that money on? It's tens of thousands of dollars.
Non-consumables usually, 690.
Like paper?
No.
Crayons?
Something that lasts more than, we used to use the guidelines 2 to 3 years. So last week you were talking about graduated cylinders. That would be most likely a supplemental versus a instructional supply.
Any of the principals want to comment on 690?
So basically, to reframe it, your student activity account, your checkbook account.
So we've used that for everything from activities for mentoring to, I think, club goods, materials, a lot of things that we get requests for activities that are outside of the classroom that help develop, enrichment and other things for the students. We've used it for...
Yeah, but that's not telling me what you bought. So, because it seems like this is just a category where you can take money out of
We also use it for...
without a lot of definition.
We use it for promotion as well.
80% of this category is athletics. So the other 20% is for, so if Jim has I don't know if you have a knitting club, but if the knitting club needed yarn and needles,
This is just...
that would come out of there.
Just student activity?
6 kids in the Cats Leadership Conference at Three Rivers.
Speak up there.
6 kids can go to Three Rivers for the Cats Leadership Conference. So there's a fee associated with that, so we pay from the student activity account to cover that fee. When a kid wins an award through CAS, there's also a fee associated with that, so we pick it up through that account as well, just for the child to take their own way. But it's just little things like that. Ours is only $1,000 even with the Olympics, so it's not big bucks. But
And also, if a student doesn't have the ability to pay, and it's determined through free and reduced lunch that, to go on to an activity, like if there's a cost for field trip, that would be another use for that.
Also, for when we sent it to like a Rubik's Cube competition or math challenge, or there's also the we're involved in the leadership conference too. It's so.
Yeah, so I'm not comfortable with that because the category is other supplies and materials, and if we're paying fees, we should have a line item for fees, right? Or enrollment fees, or something like that. This is just too wishy-washy for me. And
we do at the high school, we require students to keep interactive notebooks, quite a few classes. We fund a lot of that for students who can't afford to do it. So we are supplementing actual materials at the high school level as well as paying for everything they need for those leadership conferences. We use it for peer mediation training and supplies for that as well.
Amanda?
Question, under just general activities. So how do we determine which club, if you will, or which group gets funds and they don't? So my daughter does Model UN. I had to pay almost $300 to send her to Yale to stay overnight and go wherever and go for the whole program and whatnot. And they had between 20 and 25 kids that went, but then if you look at the World Language Honor Society, there's only 20 kids in that, and they're getting some sort of stipend. I just kind of wondered how they choose or pick.
What you would do is you would ask the administration for a breakout. Or you would say to the administration, the board as a whole would say, we want more detail than you're providing, we want more line items. I don't know if we want to have more line items. That's how you would do it.
You can certainly do the board of
I'd like the
breakdown.
athletics bucket to be broken out as well. I want to see what we're paying for uniforms, what are we asking the parents to provide, what is the school providing. So I'd like a better,
So Appendix
look
J
at that.
gives you the athletic breakdown for high school, and then I emailed during the week the middle school athletic breakdown.
And then it says police services. Looks like a random, and it doesn't really.
What page?
On page 70.
What page is it?
Page 70, it says police services at the bottom of activities.
That's for like families and...
Yeah, that might be,
So if it's-
a security, if there's a big event, or if we need traffic control out here at the light,
For like
for big events,
athletic.
like if we have a major concert and we need
Okay.
athletic police services,
That's a
is under
separate-
security.
Right.
But on page 69 gives you high school athletic breakdown of uniforms and athletic supplies, and the appendix gives you a breakdown more on the personnel side. And then emailed in that packet to you is the CLMS athletic breakdown, which is tied to 690.
Where are you seeing the uniform breakdown?
Page 69. But I'm happy to break out to the board year-to-date expenses that have come out of 690. Joe, we'd be able to produce that.
I'm kind of wondering who we're using for company to get uniforms. For example, I had mentioned field hockey last week. It's $6,800 divided by 30 is around $226 for just the uniform. I'm guessing if that's all that means, because it's not
Two
under...
sets, home and away.
Okay. I just wonder if there's a way to look at getting reversible jerseys or just a cut. I don't know. I mean, my kids do sports. For one soccer kit with home and away, several different pairs of socks, a soccer ball, plus a backpack from Nike, it was around $300 and plus 2 practice outfits and a long sleeve and long pants. And I'm just comparing apples to apples because it just seems it's kind of an exorbitant amount of money, but I just wondered.
Certainly have that on for big need.
I'm just wondering if we get the best bang for our buck, I guess is what we're saying.
I asked them last week about that, and I think we get everything through Nike.
Correct.
I mean,
You can always work deals with these people, but they're pretty competitive amongst each other as far as...
maybe there's people to talk to who, so Southeast Soccer Club gets, like I said, it's a home and away, it's 2 practice outfits, it's long sleeve, it's all the stuff that they expect the kids. So if my kid does basketball and she wants the extra stuff, other than just the uniform, we have to pay for it. Seems like a lot.
If you wanted to increase the budget so that the board pays for it, you could.
I find better, like if Southeast Soccer is getting it for super cheap, if you will, why can't Waterford Public Schools get it for a better price?
You have to go, because every year with the Waterford Soccer Club, we have people, the uniform people hounding us every year for
switch.
bids and tell us what would be, yeah, I don't know.
Something to think about.
I'm sure Tom will make Chris aware of that concern.
In my notes.
Budget matrix. $69 through $71. Equipment, 72 through 74, again go back and look at this. Dues and fees. Board's ready, we haven't yet had public questions and comments. I'd like to move to that if you're ready. Are there any public questions or comments? April.
Yes, I want to thank you for your support, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the Learning and Service School teacher. And I'm always happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any other public comments or questions? Someone care to make a motion to adjourn?
I want to go to the basketball.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah.